Welcome back to the Central Indiana Sports Report. IU fans live today from Stage 22 in beautiful Elwood, Indiana. I'm joined at Stage 22 by Grant Shouse and on the phone by Mike Hutsell. They are here to talk some IU football, a little bit of IU basketball wherever they want. The next half hour or so is yours. Grant, take it away.
Well, Greg, I got to say, this is a beautiful home that your mother has decorated.
Not my mother's house. It's Stage 22.
Sounds like you're on Stage 22 of denial about living with your mom, Greg.
His mom lives with him, Mike. Nothing's really changed with IU football over the weekend, did it, Mike? Was there anything that happened that maybe is worth talking about here at length?
Nah, I can't really think of anything historic. The 60 minutes segment, is that what you were referring to?
That was pretty cool. I had to think Saturday night, besides there being an embarrassing basketball game there at Rupp Arena, Indiana had its first ever Heisman Trophy winner, Fernando Mendoza, take the coveted Heisman Trophy award back to Bloomington. I know we reacted to it, and we're kind of going to rehash that reaction here. That was awesome for him to be able to do that. What a great guy for it to happen to.
Then you see the videos and everything that are coming out after he's walking around Times Square. People are chanting his name. He says today that he didn't need security. He had his O-line with him.
Mm-hmm.
There was some of the defensive guys were with him. Indiana football is getting chanted on Times Square in New York after the Heisman Trophy ceremony. Every time we talk about it, it feels like, Jesus, it can't be this good, and it is. And here we are again. And then we get the free advertising of 60 Minutes last night.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just fun. It's fun to be an Indiana fan. That's for damn sure.
What was your thoughts before we really get into that Heisman ceremony? But what'd you think of that 60 Minutes segment? Have you watched it?
I did. I watched it today, and didn't get a chance to see it last night, but I did watch it today. It sits on a lot of things that, we already knew. Obviously, Indiana sucked. They hired this guy that nobody else was really looking at, and now they don't suck anymore. One thing, how cool do you have to be for the university to set up a whole shack for you at the top of their press box so that you could smoke during the game like John Mellencamp can? The only person in Bloomington that gets away with smoking inside the stadium is John Mellencamp, because they give him his own smoker's lounge on the top of the press box at Memorial Stadium.
And I did not know that until I watched it, and I always wondered what that was.
I had no clue. Just think that's the coolest thing in the world. The most compelling thing for me for that is Don Fischer, who has watched so much bad football in his life, is just, you can tell, just reveling in this.
Mm-hmm.
This is the coolest thing in the world to him. This is a reward for a Hall of Fame career in a lot of ways, because if anybody deserves what's happened with Indiana football, it's that guy.
Yeah.
And he got national attention on Sunday for his hard work.
And I've wanted to really get into being a play-by-play guy for most of my life here. And now that I've started to do it on a little bit of a smaller scale at the high school level, Don Fischer's a guy that I've looked to take his nuances and his flow and the way he calls the game. And he's very deserving of all this. Even Curt Cignetti, who I know at one time before has dealt with a figure similar to Don Fischer when he was at IUP. This is a little fun fact here, is that IUP has had their version of Don Fischer for years, and it was a guy named Jack Benedict. And he's the guy that did, the Curt Cignetti show clear back at IUP. He's dealt with a guy similar to Don Fischer, but Don Fischer, like you said, Mike, has watched so much bad football. He's watched some bad basketball too over the years. The guy that's called 3 national titles on the basketball floor got to work with arguably the greatest college basketball coach of all time, called the last undefeated college basketball season in 1976, 50 years ago. I think will tell you that this is probably the most fun he's had as being the play-by-play guy for over 50 years at Indiana University. And it truly is remarkable to see how far he's come, and he gets to witness this, and it's awesome, and he has no intention of slowing down, I don't think.
Anybody who knows anything about listening to college athletics, people who aren't even Indiana fans, know Don Fischer, and I've never heard a fan of another school say a negative thing about Don Fischer.
Right.
You can say what you want about Buck or Lewis or whoever has been the color guy. You got Eric Soar for basketball.
Todd Leary.
Todd Leary was there for a while for basketball.
Not anymore.
The late Royce Waltman was there for basketball for a while. And people have said, oh, man, that color guy's what a clown. No one has ever said that about Don Fischer. I've never heard a single person say. Because Don Fischer, where his allegiances are, and he doesn't even hide them most of the time.
He doesn't have to.
It doesn't seem to matter. He delivers it in such a way that just doesn't annoy the piss out of you. Eric knows as much as anybody. I hated Bob Lamey from the Colts.
Really?
God, I could not stand listening to that man on the radio. And I'm not a Colts fan. But I was like, and Hawk Harrelson with the White Sox, and those type of guys. Those type of guys just drive me freaking crazy. But Fischer, we know he's an Indiana fan. He doesn't hide that he's an Indiana fan. But yet he delivers in such a manner that people aren't like, man, this guy's a clown. He's got a little bit of professionalism in the way he's a homer, whereas these other guys are just idiots.
The color people he's had over the years that have come and went, and Todd Leary, who did it for a long time, who is not doing it anymore, actually hasn't done it since his first arrest, was when he got arrested while doing a game, mind you, which is unbelievable. Guys like Eric Soar, who I actually think is really good. I think does a good job. I enjoy listening to him. Just a local Bloomington guy there who got a shot playing at IU. And I think it's funny how Eric does the color for basketball, and then his dad, Buck, does the color for football. Buck is terrible, but he does bring the comedic effect to the broadcast, and where Don Fischer can kind of relax, especially nowadays when they're, or when they have blown teams out the way they have. You can kind of relax and call the game and have a good time. So I'll give Buck Sir credit for that, but he is not my favorite. And you mentioned those guys that you can't stand listening to on the radio. I haven't listened enough to Bob Lamey to know. I do like Matt Taylor for the Colts. I think he does a great job. But
you going grad?
You're right. And Don Fischer's a guy who, if you haven't heard his story, look it up. Look up how Don Fischer got into broadcasting. Just a guy who was working the night shift at a train station and saw an ad to be a play-by-play guy in the back of a magazine and took all these classes and then worked his way up and ended up getting the job at Indiana, where he's been ever since. And he always brings a professional delivery. And he's allowed to be a homer. He honestly can homer all he wants. I'm okay with that. When Indiana University signs your paycheck, I think you're allowed to homer him.
You're supposed to be a bit of a homer.
Right. The Colts signed Matt Taylor's check. He can be a homer. They signed Bob Lamey's check. He could be a homer. But these guys who, work for a radio station and pledge their allegiance to one school that, they didn't go to, or, have been calling their games for over 50 years. It gets to the point where you can't do that and expect people to take you seriously. And this is coming from someone in me who's in the business and sees it on a daily basis, and studies it. So that's where I sit on that. And he is arguably the face of Indiana University athletics. Maybe not the face, but the voice. And when that dude is no longer here on this earth one day, it's going to be a sad day, because there are people who have gone their entire lives. Actually, all of us here talking have gone our entire lives not knowing anything other than Don Fischer calling Indiana basketball and Indiana football games, which is just unbelievable. You just don't get that anymore.
52 years old, and that's how.
But it's funny because like there'll be crossover and the beginning of the basketball season and the end of the football season. So Indiana will go down to like Puerto Rico or one of those island events, and Fisher's staying back doing the bucket game. And the guy who does the play-by-play for the radio broadcast for IU is almost apologetic when he jumps on air. He's like, listen, Don Fisher's in West Lafayette. He can't be here today. It's me today. I'm sorry. It's just funny to hear someone be almost apologetic stepping into Fisher's role, because that's just how good he is and how synonymous he is with the program.
Hey, and talking here about circling back to the Heisman now with Fernando Mendoza and everything, I want to get your thoughts, Mike, here on Diego Pavia there at Vanderbilt. What do you think? Should he have been there? Did he conduct himself in a way that a Heisman candidate should? I have my thoughts, but I want to hear yours first.
This is not why sometimes I feel like maybe recording something immediately after it happens isn't a good idea, because I spent way too much time on the Heisman reaction pod Saturday night saying, hey, Pavia may have told his family to tone it down a little bit because people are watching. And
he didn't.
He did not.
I woke up Sunday realizing, yeah, that was wrong. That's on me. He's effing off the Heisman voters. He's running around New York with a sign that says F Indiana. The Heismilf, his mom is doing Heismilf things. What a clown show, man. You're 5'8". This is effectively a job interview for you. You're going to get shadored the way you're acting right now. You're going to be more of a headache than the third string quarterback's ever going to be worth. And this idiot, look, you lost, okay? Sucks. You had a great season. Somebody else had a better season. I'm sorry you're almost 30 years old and still in college, and this is the peak of your life, and you're now entering the enterprise rent-a-car manager program that you're destined for. But
his apology on Twitter, Mike, had to be AI, right?
That was, hey, send me an apology. And Rick Bozich, he's retired now. I don't know if you know who Rick Bozich is, Brant.
I do.
Long-time guy down here in Louisville.
Mm-hmm.
He comes off the top rope with maybe the tweet of the weekend when Pavia tweets his apology, and Bozich comes in and is like, this sounds like something you say when you know you're going to work for somebody else one day.
I love Rick.
So he didn't hold back, and everybody saw through what it was. Everybody saw the way Pavia acted.
Hey guys, I didn't want to say this directly after the Heisman Trophy, but I just got to say, we talked about it a little bit the other day. Fernando Mendoza is not the best football player in the country. This was a team award.
I actually do agree with that. The more I've thought about it, the way everybody around him complimented him. Julian Sand, I feel like, is the same way. Mendoza has a better story, has a better personality,
and performed better in clutch situations.
Yeah, and Julian Sand is going to have probably another 2 or 3 years here to make up for that. He's probably going to be up there winning that award at some point. This is something that, yeah, Fernando Mendoza won, but this is more for the university, in my opinion. This is more for the football program. To have guys that were finalists at one point, like Anthony Thompson, who finished runner-up, and Antoine Randall, who was a great player and just was not on a good enough of a team. Honestly, you kind of have your doubts a little bit in the back of your mind. You're maybe thinking, yeah, I don't know if Mendoza will win it because of how people are going to vote. Like you said, Mike, like the South's going to vote for Pavia. The Midwest is going to be torn on if they want to vote for Mendoza, Jeremiah Love at Notre Dame, or Julian Sand at Ohio State. And then when you look at the final results, He blew that thing out of the water. It was not even close. He won 86% of all first place votes from people. Second highest vote total ever. First place vote total ever. There was no doubt on who was going to win this award. And the other guys I thought were deserving to be there. Not Pavia, but I thought Sayan and Love were deserving to be there. And
so was Pavia.
That's a whole other discussion for another day. But I think that, again, this is an award for the program, not just Fernando Mendoza, who does deserve this, but this is a lot for the program, I think.
Now you've got the portal opening up and all these big, huge name quarterbacks are jumping in. And the first school that you see mentioned
Crazy.
on a lot of these lists now, in 2 seasons, this coaching staff has a Heisman winner and a Heisman top 10 quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Neither of which were highly recruited guys. So I don't think, like Raiola came into the portal today, I don't think Kurt Signetti even picks up the phone if he calls.
Mm-mm.
Because the circus that goes around him, we've talked about Leavitt at Arizona State. He's going to have a huge price tag. People are going to be calling Indiana. It's whether or not at this point, who is Indiana going to accept a call from? And that's wild to think that Indiana can maybe not even pick up the phone.
Because back 4 or 5 years ago, even actually maybe 3 or 4 years ago, actually, if Dylan Raiola wanted to call Indiana and come play football, they're answering the call and they're giving that guy, they're throwing the entire kitchen sink at that dude, just if he's interested at playing at Indiana.
What about the perfect example of this? You have Sorsby, who spends 2 years in Bloomington, almost, it's no secret, had already negotiated his NIL deal out of IU to go to Cincinnati before the bucket game was even over his sophomore year. He goes to Cincinnati, has a couple of, pretty good years. Not going to say he was ever elite, but he's a good quarterback. He'd get drafted if he went into the draft. But now the rumor is he's wanting to come back to Indiana to some degree. I think Texas Tech is considered his leader, but the rumors out there is like, hey, I'd be interested in coming back if you'd have me. And it's up to Indiana to decide if they want to go that route. They're not turning away Brendan Sorsby 2 years ago. If Sorsby wanted to stay, he was staying. Now it's like, maybe. Well, look.
My question is now, Mike, what do you do with Alberto?
I'm going to trust whatever the coaching staff decides.
I am too. I could see them landing this guy as Drew Mestemaker from North Texas, who is a good quarterback at North Texas. Indiana actually opens with North Texas this coming season, or next season, I guess.
The Mean Green.
They lost to North Texas one time on the road at North Texas. So
good old Denton. Yeah, Mestemaker's a really interesting case because general consensus is he'll probably stay with his coach and go to Oklahoma State. But at the same time, he's thinking, no offense, coach, but I could maybe win the Heisman if I go here. So Indiana is like the school that people are like, if I'm good enough to play there, coach, I may have to leave you behind. And that's, again, against Oklahoma State. If you have any memory at all of the Insight Bowl and the Bill Lynch era, you'd have never thought those two programs would ever be where they are right now.
All right, not much basketball talk tonight. Pretty slow week for the Hoosiers. They play Chicago State on Saturday, one of the worst teams on their schedule, but we will have a reaction after the game. As far as football goes, we'll be back next week with an IU report and a preview of Indiana against either Alabama or Oklahoma in the Rose Bowl. And guys, who scares you the most between the two of them? And if I throw in Oregon as well, which teams most concern you about stopping the Hoosiers from getting deep into the tournament?
Oregon and Texas Tech, both really. Everyone. I do feel confident about whoever they're going to play in the Rose Bowl. We've seen Oklahoma have problems where their offense has struggled. Alabama is a team that we can sit here and talk all day on whether or not they should even be in the playoff. That's not for us to decide. Indiana is going to obviously play whoever is going to win that game. I feel good about either one of them, but if they were to match up with Oregon again, that's going to be tough. Dan Lanning knows how to motivate. He knows how to coach. They play Texas Tech. Texas Tech's defense is really freaking good. So is Indiana's. It all concerns me because it's playoff football. Anything can happen. We saw what happened with the teams that got the byes last year. They didn't have as much momentum as the teams in the second round. Now that the tournament is formatted different, where it's the top 4 teams now, it's not the top 4 conference champions, that could play a factor. Like when you have Ohio State, the eventual national champion, playing in the first round when they probably should have been the 1 seed last year. Notre Dame, who is playing in the first round, has all this momentum and goes on this run, and these teams lose momentum. As at least last year, they lost momentum as time went on. So you can't overlook it. Kurt Signetti and them know that. I'm not concerned about them not having a game plan or anything, or not knowing what they're doing, because as he said this week here, before they know their opponent, is more typical walkthrough week. Kind of treat it like how you would an off week, get in the weight room a little bit and get back to work and everything. Then after they know who wins that game, then they'll have all that time to prepare and through Christmas, and then fly out to LA and play in that game, whether it's Oklahoma or Alabama. I think one advantage is that Indiana will, not that this will really matter, but they'll have one extra day of prep than the other teams, where, their opponent plays Friday. I'm really looking forward to that game Friday. So no matter who Indiana plays, I feel good. But if they were to get to the Peach Bowl down there in Atlanta, Oregon and Texas Tech, either one of them really concerns me. Even Oklahoma and Alabama. So time will only tell.
I don't know what or why Texas Tech has kind of become the most forgotten team in this thing. You've heard a lot about every team in this event except for Texas Tech, I feel like. And they have one loss this year. First of all, they spend more money than maybe any team in this thing. They got that oil money and they spend it, man, on every sport. That's how they've become just like a powerhouse. But they only lost one game this year. It was on the road against a college football playoff team from a year ago, Arizona State, and it was without their starting quarterback. They could very well be the 2 or the 3 seed if they win that game. I don't know why people are kind of overlooking them. And the other fun fact is their linebacker, Rodriguez, got more first place votes for the Heisman than Julian Sayin.
Yeah.
It's
crazy.
And he didn't get invited to New York, but they put him in. They let him run some, goal line stuff. He's probably going to be a first round NFL draft pick whenever the time comes. Pretty high in a first round NFL draft pick. So that team, I feel like they're just being completely overlooked and completely overshadowed. And I know it's because they've come out of the Big 12 and people don't have a great level of respect for the Big 12, but I'm not going to be surprised if Oregon is favored when that game kicks off and Texas Tech wins outright. I think that team is overlooked and they scare me more than any team on that side of the bracket. Look, Indiana's going to play Oklahoma or Alabama. That's 2 of the biggest 5 brands in college football. So it would be disingenuous to sit here and say Indiana's just going to run them off the field.
Mm-hmm. And it's the Rose Bowl. To win the Rose Bowl, no matter, like Lee Corso would say, like, or he told Chris Fowler to tell Fernando Mendoza the other night, is that the Rose Bowl is not the end of the rainbow now. But for Indiana fans to win the Rose Bowl, especially to win a bowl game for the first time since 1991, would mean the world to this program and to these fans. But that's just the last thing I wanted to add, Mike.
Guys, Indiana's going to be playing either Alabama or Oklahoma in the freaking Rose Bowl on New Year's Day.
And they're probably going to be favored.
They
Actually
are
will
be
be favored. Yeah.
I mean, the 1967 team they actually played O.J. Simpson. So they played a real college football power. Did I do my old boomer man enough there?
The people who think that can kiss my backside.
Pretty crazy. 60 Minutes feature on IU football.
And Grant, you may know more than me. Apparently that guy is from Indiana, the guy that did the piece.
Okay, that makes sense.
Apparently he's from like Evansville or something.
Okay.
I was reading. I was kind of surprised that Galen Clavio wasn't on that because he seems to. You know who Galen Clavio is?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he seems to be like the historian voice of Indiana football with some of these media segments that are popping up. I figured he'd pop up on that.
I actually like that guy.
I like that guy a lot. He's cool as hell. I listen to their pod a lot.
Uh-huh.
As I mentioned, we will be back on Saturday to react to IU's game against Chicago State. We'll be back next week, all week. We'll be doing all kinds of cool stuff, not only with Grant and Mike, but also with Eric and Ryan Robinson talking college football playoffs for the next couple of weeks. Not a lot of college basketball going on during this Christmas time. It's all about the college football. Central Indiana Sports Report is a product of ITG Media, and I love Susie.